South Sudan Untold, the home of South Sudan history. From pre-colonial to post-independence, the past lives here.
Welcome to the South Sudan Untold. In this documentary, we examine one of the most important political documents in the history of independent South Sudan, the 2018 Revitalized Agreement on the resolution of the conflict in the Republic of South Sudan. We will explain how it came about, who signed it, what it promised to accomplish, what has been achieved, and why its future is now hanging in the balance. South Sudan was born in July 2011, carrying the hopes of a people who had struggled for generations to determine their own future. But only 2 years after independence, a political dispute at the center of the government broke into armed conflict. Communities were divided, institutions weakened, and millions of civilians were forced from their homes. On 12 September 2018, after years of war, failed settlements, and regional diplomacy, South Sudan parties gathered in Addis Ababa and signed a new political pact, the Revitalized Agreement on the Resolution of Conflict in the Republic of South Sudan, known simply as the RCS. It promised more than silence on the battlefield. It offered a complete path from conflict to constitutional government, yet nearly 8 years later, that promise remains unfinished, and the agreement designed to protect the peace is itself under extraordinary strain. So how did South Sudan reach the point where a second major peace agreement became necessary? To answer that question, we must return to the early years of independence. The crisis began in December 2013 as tensions inside the ruling Sudan People's Liberation Movement escalated into conflict between forces loyal to President Salva Kiir Mayardit and forces aligned with former Vice President Dr. Riek Machar. What started as an elite political struggle spread across the country, taking on ethnic, military, and local dimensions. The Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, led negotiations. In August 2015, the parties signed the first agreement on the resolution of the conflict in South Sudan. That agreement created a transitional unity government, and Machar returned to Juba as first vice president. In 2016, but renewed fighting in the capital in July of that year shattered the agreement. Machar left the country, the opposition fragmented, and peace process appeared to have failed. IGAD then launched the High-Level Revitalization Forum in 2017. Its purpose was to invent an entirely different peace deal, but to revive the 2015 framework, bring estranged parties back into negotiations, and correct the weaknesses that had allowed the earlier settlement to collapse. A cessation of hostilities agreement was signed in December 2017. In 2018, diplomacy intensified. Face-to-face meetings between Kiir and Machar were supported by Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, Sudan's President Omar Hassan al-Bashir, Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni, and Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta. Talks in Khartoum produced agreements on governance and security. The final revitalized text was then endorsed through the IGAD process and signed in Addis Ababa. That diplomatic journey finally produced a document, but a peace agreement is defined not only by its words, it is also defined by the people and political forces willing to place their names and their credibility behind it. The agreement was signed by the major parties that had fought, governed, or participated in the transition. President Salva Kiir signed for the incumbent Transitional Government of National Unity. Dr. Riek Machar signed for the Sudan People's Liberation Movement and army in opposition, the SPLA-IO. Other party representatives include Gabriel Changson Chang for the South Sudan Opposition Alliance, Deng Alor Kwol for the former detainees, and Peter Mayen Majongdit for the other political parties. Representatives of civil society, women, youth, faith-based groups, and other stakeholders were also part of the wider revitalization process. Sudan and Uganda signed as guarantors, while IGAD and regional leaders carried responsibility for supporting and overseeing implementation. Not every armed or political movement joined the deal. Holdout groups, including the National Salvation Front, led by Thomas Cirillo, remain outside. It's leaving an important gap in the agreement's national reach. With the parties identified, the next question becomes unavoidable. What exactly did they agree to do? The answer reveals why the RCC is much more than an ordinary ceasefire. The RCC is divided into 8 chapters. Together, they form a blueprint for ending war and rebuilding the state. First, it established a revitalized transitional government of national unity. The executive would be led by President Kiir, a first vice president nominated by the SPLA-IO, and 4 additional vice presidents. Government ministries, parliament, state governments, and public institutions would be shared among the signatory parties. The purpose was to bring former opponents into one transitional system instead of leaving them to compete through armed force. Second, the agreement created a permanent ceasefire and transitional security arrangements. Rival forces were to assemble, be screened, trained, and unified into professional national force. Soldiers who were not selected were to enter disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration programs. Civilian areas were to be demilitarized, and ceasefire monitors were to empower to investigate violations. Third, it addressed humanitarian assistance and reconstruction. Displaced citizens and refugees were to be supported to return voluntarily, safely, and with dignity. Humanitarian agencies were to receive access, while the government worked to rebuild communities damaged by conflict. Number 4, the agreement demanded economic and financial reform. It called for more transparent management of public revenue, stronger oversight of petroleum income, action against corruption, and the restructuring of important public institutions. Peace in this design was linked to accountable government and the fair use of national resources. Number 5, it proposed transitional justice. 3 institutions were envisaged: a commission for truth, reconciliation, and healing, an independent hybrid court for South Sudan, and a compensation and reparation authority. These mechanisms were intended to establish truth, promote reconciliation, prosecute serious crimes, and recognize the losses suffered by citizens. 6, it requires a permanent, inclusive, and people-led constitution-making process. The constitution was meant to define the rules of the future state, not simply preserve the temporary balance negotiated by political elites. 7, it provided for institutions that would monitor and evaluate implementation, especially the reconstituted Joint Monitoring and Evaluation Commission, or the RGMEC, and the Ceasefire Monitoring Mechanism, now known as CTSAM-VM. Finally, the transition was supposed to end through free, fair, and credible election. The agreement was therefore a bridge from rival armies to unified forces, from negotiated power sharing to elected government, and from a transitional constitution to a permanent constitution order. On paper, this was an ambitious national transformation, but peace agreements are not judged only by the promises they contain. They are judged by what those promises produce in the lives of citizens. This brings us to the record of implementation. The agreement did produce major gains. Large-scale confrontation between the principal signatories declined after 2018. The Revitalized Transitional Government of National Unity was formed in February 2020. Machar returned as first vice president, opposition figures entered government, and the national legislature was reconstituted. Some laws and institutions were amended or re-established. Parts of the necessary unified forces were trained, graduated, and deployed. Electoral, political party, and constitutional making bodies were reconstituted. For many citizens, these steps created political space and prevented a return to the nationwide conflict seen earlier in the decade. But progress has repeatedly fallen behind the agreement's deadlines. The transition, originally envisioned by the deal, has been extended more than once. Elections were moved to December 2026, with the transitional period running to February 2027. Importantly, security, justice, constitutional, and electoral tasks remain incomplete. This mixture of achievements and delay explains the uncertainty surrounding South Sudan today. The agreement has prevented complete collapse, yet many of the safeguards meant to make peace permanent remain unfinished. And that is precisely why the present moment is so dangerous. Today, the RCS faces several connected dangers. The first is the breakdown of trust among the principal parties. First Vice President Machar was placed under house arrest in March 2025 and later faced serious charges linked to violence in Upper Nile. Senior members of his movement were detained or removed, and the clashes involving government forces, opposition allied forces, and armed groups spread in several areas. In January 2026, the dismissal of Interior Minister Angelina Tain as SPLIO nominee deepened accusations that the power-sharing bargain was being weakened. The second danger is unfinished security unification. The agreement cannot fully stabilize the country while forces remain divided by party loyalty and command structure and access to resources. Delays in training, deployment, salaries, and command arrangement leave armed actors outside a genuinely national security system. The third danger is the election timetable. The government says the national election will be held in December 2026. On 22nd July 2026, President Kiir assented to amendments that remove completion of the permanent constitution and the national population census as legal preconditions for those elections. Supporters argue that this clears obstacles and prevents more delay. Critics fear that the removing major benchmarks could produce a vote before political, legal, and security environment is ready. The question is therefore larger than whether an election date appears on a calendar. Are political parties free to organize? Can candidates campaign across the country? Are security forces unified and impartial? Is civic space protected? Are voters registered and informed? Can refugees and displaced citizens participate? And will every major party accept the result? The fourth danger is the absence of accountability and reconciliation mechanism promised in Chapter 5. Without credible truth, justice, and reparation process, the wounds and grievances of early conflict remain open to political manipulation. Finally, there is the danger of treating the agreement as a collection of positions rather than a national covenant. Power sharing cannot stop immediate confrontation, but it cannot by itself create institutions, public trust, or democratic legitimacy. If leaders selectively apply the clause that preserve authority while postponing those that demand reform, the agreement loses both balance and meaning. Taken together, these pressures reveals a difficult truth. The RCS is still alive, but its survival cannot be taken for granted. The final chapter of this story has not yet been written. The 2018 Revitalized Peace Agreement remains the most important political framework holding South Sudan's transition together. It ended neither every local conflict nor every political rivalry. It did, however, create a common language through which ceasefire, power sharing, reform, justice, constitution making, and election could be pursued. Its survival now depends on whether the signatories return to dialogue, respect the power-sharing architecture, complete the unification of forces, protect civil and political freedoms, and prepare elections whose credibility rests not only on speed but on public confidence. For South Sudan, the choice is not simply between keeping or abandoning a document signed in 2018. The real choice is between negotiated politics and violent competition, between a transition repeatedly extended and a democratic order genuinely completed. The agreement is at stake, but so is something far greater: the right of South Sudanese citizens to live under peace, accountable institutions, and government chosen through a process they can trust. The signatures placed on the agreement in 2018 opened a door. It is now the responsibility of South Sudan leaders, institutions, political parties, and citizens to ensure that the country walks through that door toward lasting peace and democratic movement. If you found this documentary informative, share it with others who want to understand South Sudan peace process. Subscribe to the channel for more documentary, historical analysis, and informed discussions about the future of South Sudan. Thank you for watching.